All right, everyone, we're going to get started. Welcome to today's Hinckley Forum. My name is Max Laporte, and I'm going to be your forum host. The Hinckley Institute of Politics is a nonpartisan institute at the University of Utah. The Hinckley provides an array of transformative experiences for students through internships, forums, and classes. Hinckley Forums seek to foster public discourse and civil debate on the most current and pressing issues, bringing in local, national, and international thought leaders. A quick note that pizza will be served at the end of today's event. Today's forum is titled Doing More with Less, Lessons for Building Utah's Circular Economy. We want to thank the U of U Sustainability Office for their partnership on this event. We are excited to be joined by some great presenters. Celia Peterson has worked on sustainability in Park City for 7 years. Prior to that, she lived, studied, and worked abroad for about 15 years, mostly in Finland. There, she was CEO of The Natural Step and consulted with companies on sustainable business strategies and worked for several years on sustainability and IT at the Nokia headquarters, including procurement, global takeback, and recycling programs, and sustainable product development. She's originally from Logan. With a background in supply chain and manufacturing, Ben Whiteman has managed, analyzed, and optimized manufacturing processes in the food and beverage and consumer packaged goods industries. He now works in GE Digital to design and develop innovative software tools which enable manufacturers to drive meaningful action toward their sustainability goals. Ben is a practice systems thinker with a passion for helping create circular, sustainable, and equitable systems at local and global scales. Elizabeth Barrett comes to us from Wasatch Resource Recovery. Wasatch Resource Recovery. Wasatch Resource Recovery is Utah's first and only anaerobic digester dedicated to food waste diversion. Elizabeth has been with the organization for 4 years and is the primary procurement manager, reaching out to groups throughout Utah that produce food waste and working to get that waste into our facility. Today's conversation has been organized and will be kicked off by Kara Friedman, the University of Utah Sustainability Office Engagement and Events Coordinator. Runs programs like What Goes Around Comes Around to promote a circular economy on campus, as well as the Fall Farmers Market at the Union to bring local vendors to the campus community. She also collaborates with other departments and groups to coordinate extracurricular opportunities related to the university's definition of sustainability for Earth Day and throughout the year. Please join me in welcoming our guests.
Okay. Thanks for being here, everybody. I'm just here to give us a little bit of the lay of the land. This is Doing More with Less. We're talking about the circular economy. And really, we have 3 professionals in the room who are going to talk to us about different aspects of the circular economy from the city government perspective, from the manufacturing perspective, and from food and organics. And I will close us off with some sort of notices about what's happening here on campus that we can be involved in. And then we should have plenty of time for questions, Q&A at the end from you all. I have a couple as well. And just a note to the presenters, I will be keeping track of time, so keep an eye out for the 2-minute warning. All right, Celia is gonna be first. Nick, can I get help? I'm not sure where to, thank you.
This is your turn? No.
Mine's the one with all the diagrams.
You got it.
All right, can you guys hear me all right? Thanks for having me today. Again, my name's Celia, and happy to be here. I organized my presentation. I'm going to throw 3 slides at you that are just kind of some visuals and models that have helped me form my thinking around circular economy, and then 3 examples from Park City that we've been working on. So this is going back to my consulting days. Consulting with CEOs, I can't tell you how many times we kind of go back to these basic laws of science and people are like, oh, I didn't remember that. It's back to elementary school science, but what's really important to remember is the laws of thermodynamics. Nothing disperses or nothing disappears and everything disperses. And the way that we're impacting Earth ecosystems, we're mining relatively large flows of finite materials from the Earth's crust and fusing those back into the environment in a wasteful way. We're also pushing out persistent compounds into the environment that the environment doesn't know what to do with. So this illustrates the need for a circular economy, capturing those valuable materials in ways that we can reuse them again, but also capturing them so they're not destroying Earth's ecosystems. This is one of the first big diagrams around to help illustrate circular economy. Comes from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation out of the UK. What I really like about this diagram is the cascades. So those different loops there, what we need to focus on is tightening the loops essentially. So making sure that we're not releasing persistent compounds back into the atmosphere, recapturing those, and then also recapturing finite materials. This also illustrates the circularity of the bioeconomy, the green loops there. So I like to differentiate from bio-based compounds that nature does know what to do with, that are valuable, but then also the ones that nature doesn't know what to do with. I also wanted to highlight here that there's no energy recovery. The tighter the loop, the more energy that you're saving. But when it comes to burning materials for fuel, that's not included in the circular economy model. So I'm part of ICLEI, which is Local Governments for Sustainability. They've got a circularity cohort right now that we're working on policies for local governments. And the model that we're using, you'll notice doesn't even use the term recycling, which is just semantics, but I think it's important to note that we really want to emphasize material recovery and what happens with materials after they leave for take back. So, and then also, again, no energy recovery, unless we're talking about organics, which I'm sure the next speaker will get into. Another part of this that I really think we need to focus on is the redesign of systems. This is where I think another speaker will get into, but manufacturing processes, how we consume our goods. This is something that we need to rethink in society, and circular economy is offering us solutions around that. All right, so 3 concrete examples from Park City. The sharing economy, on this one you'll see right there, sharing is one of the tightest loops. So getting the most use out of products is a very key concept of the circular economy, and libraries are great for that. Our library has the Sustainability Resource Center, which has a lot of information, but also materials that people can check out instead of having to buy their own. We've got board games, we've got tools, sewing machines, things that people don't need every day, but they only need sometimes. Those are great for sharing economy. We also, last year, did a pilot for reusable to-go container program that on one hand was a great success and a failure on the other hand. The failure was that we engaged several restaurants that we knew people frequented for to-go options, obliged their clients to sign up for the reusable program for a small fee and then return the boxes once they get there to go to several locations around town. The subscription model fell flat on its face. There wasn't a lot of uptake, but what was successful is that we coordinated with a caterer that provides school meals to the Montessori school up there, about 50 meals per day, and they loved it. They're still doing it on their own and saving upwards of 7,000 to-go containers that would otherwise be going into the landfill every year. Bold Reuse is the name of the company that we partnered with. They're out of Portland, and we learned that really to make this work, it has to be at scale. So they're doing reusable food containers at sporting events and schools in the Portland area now, and that's from direct learnings from this project. Last but not least, we're way into biochar up in Park City. Park City is entirely within the WUI, the wildland-urban interface, and our fire risk is really, really high. The city and county have both been doing a lot of work removing fuel for forest fires through defensible space work. And what typically is done is slash piles burned or they're just chipped, but we're losing that carbon to the atmosphere. With biochar, we can capture that carbon, get it back into the soils, and help regenerate our soils and jumpstart the soil carbon cycle. So that's what I've got for you today. Feel free to contact if you've got any more questions. But with that, I will hand it over.
right, hello everyone. I'm a mover, so I'm going to use this as soon as it's ready. So I'm here to talk to you about the circular economy from a manufacturing perspective, and I thought I'd start by talking about waste. Waste has been central to my career. I got an engineering degree and started working for Anheuser-Busch on a factory floor. And every day I would work with operators to chase down sources of waste and try to find opportunities to reduce defects in our manufacturing factory. From that role, I moved into a corporate role in which I was on an internal supply chain consulting team. We would partner with the different factories within the Anheuser-Busch network, identify sources of waste, and develop action plans with those teams to address them. And now I work for GE Digital, which is the software branch of General Electric, on a team that's creating software to help orchestrate data around products, help manufacturers to optimize their manufacturing environments, and reduce waste and emissions from those processes. So I want to start with a very fundamental question, which is, what is waste? The manufacturing sector thinks about waste as anything that you do, anything that you consume, anything that you produce that doesn't add value to the end customer. So think about that in the context of this photo, and somebody identify where the sources of waste are in this picture. It's kind of an absurd question, right? There's no concept of waste in natural systems. The leaves and twigs and things that fall to the ground, those things are broken down by fungi, bacteria, insects. Those nutrients are drawn back into the soil and then taken up by the plant life, and these cycles regenerate themselves. So if we think about this example relative to how our supply chains are constructed today, what we notice is waste is simply the lack of a process to feed these outputs into. Waste is a design flaw in the systems that we've created. The linear economy is illustrated very simply by this diagram. And this is the system that we currently operate in today. So we take finite materials, we process them and make goods and services out of them that you and I then use, and when we don't have a way to use those things, we throw them away. And we have gotten really, really good at moving down this line. Manufacturers for centuries have looked for ways to optimize this process, to eliminate waste from their supply chains and make these as efficient as possible. And GE has hundreds of examples, both within our own factories and within the factories of our customers, of eliminating waste using data to optimize these supply chains. And efficiency is great. Efficiency enables us to produce more with less. Often that results in a reduction in the emissions intensity of the products we use. The challenge is we never stop taking. We never stop extracting those finite resources, and we never stop throwing them away. The reason I wanted to start this conversation talking about waste is a conversation about the circular economy is inherently a conversation about value, the value in the things that we produce and how they add value to our lives. If we never stop to evaluate how effectively we're creating value for people in the things that we make and use in our daily lives, we can make this perfectly efficient, and the system as a whole will continue to be immensely wasteful because we'll continue pulling things from the environment and we'll continue throwing them away. So that's the forcing function. That's why we have to rethink the system that we're using today. And the circular economy offers an alternative framework. It offers an answer to that wasteful design flaw. We saw this diagram already. On the left, you see in green the flow of organic materials through the circular economy and the different strategies that can be used to recapture those materials. And on the right, in blue, these are the flows of technical or manufactured materials in the circular economy, and this is where I'll be talking today. So again, you see various strategies here. Celia spoke to a few of those. You see reuse, refurbish, recycle. These are sometimes referred to as the RE strategies. And as manufacturers process goods, we increase the value of those things to people. That's the whole point of manufacturing, is to create products that add value to human beings, that produce value for people. And so we want to keep products, goods, and services as far down this diagram as we possibly can, and in doing so, maximize the value that they have. So you'll see there are a variety of strategies here, and they're all interconnected in the larger system, just like the natural system they're inspired by. But this diagram also suggests that there's a hierarchy to these systems. Again, wanting to keep materials at the highest possible value, we want to keep these things as tight of loops as we possibly can. So we want to prioritize sharing, maintaining, prolonging, reusing the goods and services to the best extent that we can for as long as we can. When those things do break, when they're no longer usable, at that point do we repair them, refurbish them, and bring them back up to a state in which they can provide value to us. And only if those strategies aren't viable do we recycle them into their material components and feed them back into the system. So I want to give some quick examples from manufacturing that illustrate different strategies. So GE Digital collects an immense amount of data from our customers' machines and the sensors, and we use that data to create models, digital models of that equipment. And we can use those models to predict failures before they occur. That enables our customers to be very precise with the maintenance that they do. They don't perform maintenance too early and limit the usefulness they get out of those parts. They don't perform that maintenance too late and risk a catastrophic failure that would require replacing that piece of equipment. So, a great example of extending and prolonging the lifetime of a product. Our gas power business produces turbines, and one of the waste streams from that production process is caustic. This is a hazardous material, and we have to pay to dispose of it. But there are other companies out there that purchase caustic to use in neutralizing the acids in their production process. And so we've partnered with those companies to exchange the caustic that we produce, feed it into their process for use in their manufacturing environment, and in doing so, we recirculate that material through the supply chain. This is a great example of reuse. And then lastly, GE has a healthcare business in which we manufacture these very high-tech medical devices. Think about the multi-million-dollar imaging machines up at the Hughes Hospital. And when those equipment are decommissioned, GE Healthcare collects those machines, runs them through a litany of diagnostic tests, analyzes a ton of data around those pieces of equipment, and identifies which parts, if any, are in need of repair. And then it repairs those parts only to bring the machine back to a usable state and to sell it again into a new market. So the circular economy is a systems solution framework. It provides a structure and a path to action to solving some of the challenges that we face today. Some of the key challenges related to climate change, resource extraction, planetary degradation. And I think it's really important to understand and to share the butterfly diagram in the context of understanding circular economy because it helps us to visualize a different system. It helps us to visualize a different future. And if we're not able to conceptualize a future in which we're not facing the problems that we face today, we're not going to be able to attain it. So it's really important to have a guidepost to be pursuing. So what happens if we get this right? What might that future look like? Kalundborg is a town in Denmark. And Kalundborg has an industrial park comprised of private factories and public utilities. These companies have decided to partner with one another to exchange the resources that they use in producing their products. So the energy, water, and materials that are used in producing one company's products are then shared with the other companies in this network. So the outputs from one company become the inputs to another. Sounds a lot like the natural systems that we have that we looked at before. And if you evaluate this system on a systemic level, the net sum of the inputs going in are actually far, far lower than they would be if each of these companies were operating independently. And on the outbound side, the wastes that are generated are much, much lower as well, because in many cases, they're not waste at all. They're inputs to another process. So this provides an example, a real-world example that's happening today for what manufacturing could look like if circularity is applied at scale. It's not perfect, but it's a guidepost. So if this is feeling very macroeconomic, if you are not sure how you can engage with this or how you could participate in the circular economy, I thought I'd end by giving some maybe inspiration for how you can embed circular principles in your daily life. We are super fortunate here in Salt Lake City to have access to curbside composting services. All you have to do is collect your food waste, drop it in the brown bin, and the city does the rest. So this is a great opportunity to regenerate organic systems here locally. The next time you're trying to pick up a new piece of gear, get new clothing, maybe you need a new kitchen gadget, consider buying used. Here in Salt Lake, we've got KSL, which is an amazing resale platform. You can get just about anything on KSL. If you need clothing, thrift stores, Poshmark is an app that enables peer-to-peer resale of clothes. eBay has been around for decades. If you are courageous enough to sign into your Facebook account this election season, Facebook Marketplace has a ton of things that you can buy. You can consider reuse in your day-to-day, or learn to sew. I mean, how many of us haven't blown out a pair of jeans in our lifetime? It's very easy to throw a patch on and continue getting use out of the clothes you love. So these may seem small, but these are ways that anyone can find agency and anyone can find opportunities to practice contributing to a circular economy in their day-to-day life. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Barrett with Wasatch Resource Recovery. I'll start by asking two questions. One, does anyone know about Wasatch Resource and/or that the university and hospitals participate? We have a couple. Thank you. I would hope so. So a little bit about us. We are in North Salt Lake, here in North Salt Lake. We have 2 anaerobic digesters, 2.5 million gallons each. We are collecting your food waste, kind of on the tails of what we just talked about, on how and what things you can do at home to help your community. So we're collecting food waste from the larger idea is to collect it from the landfill, but we also are doing some residential pickups. I'll just click through these. Wasatch Resource is a public-private group here. Maybe I will use this. Is this on? We are public-private, so we sit on South Davis Water and Sewers property. They run our facility. We are not part of the sewer, but we are run by them. They run our facility. We are collecting food waste, about 750 wet tons a day. We collect it 4 different ways. So we have our source organics, so we'll collect it from homes, restaurants, grocery stores in food truck containers that will come and just dump it on our floor. We also have our loading dock where you can send your packaged waste. So that would be more food manufacturers are sending packaged palleted items to us, beverages, breweries, things like that. Then our liquid waste, so all liquid that would be like oatmeal sludge, meat slurry, all that really fun, good stuff. And then we have our FOG, which is fats, oil, and greases. So grease traps, we work with a pig farm that sends us their fats and greases and things like that. We process all of this with secondary water that runs through all of our machines and pumps, and it goes to our 2 large digesters. This is the process. So we collect it, like I said, it's an anaerobic digester, so it has microbes in there in the large digesters that are working to create and process it so we can collect the methane. Methane rises to the top of our digesters. We have pipes that come to the top, pull it off. We have a gas conditioning skid on property that we are able to make renewable natural gas right on property. So diverting it from the landfill where methane is just released into the atmosphere, we are able to collect it and make something good that we could heat homes the size of a city of Bountiful or potentially even larger. We have the potential to build 2 additional digesters, hopefully within the next 10 years. Like I mentioned, also we're all doing a residential food waste pickup. So we work with Momentum. Anyone know Momentum, the glass who recycles all our glass? They started partnering with us, and they will pick up your food waste. They'll give you a caddy for your kitchen, and then a cart or something for your street that they'll come and pick it up. We only are doing it in 2 municipalities right now, in Cottonwood Heights and in the Liberty Heights area. Maybe I'll put this down. On both of them. But if you are interested in doing like a residential food waste pilot with Momentum, you can reach out to them and fill out their online questionnaires and all of that. What the kind of food waste are we looking for? What could you send to us? Anything that's on your plate. So we're not composting, we are making renewable natural gas. So we'll take everything, bones, eggshells, peels of oranges, pumpkins, everything that you think you could compost and then some. We are looking for low contamination. It's one of our largest kind of concerns with what we're doing out there. A lot of people think compost, so they'll send like cardboard and napkins and all that kind of stuff. That's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for anything that is consumable, that you would eat, put your mouth, that your body would digest. That's what we're looking for to create the renewable natural gas. So on site, we are collecting it 4 different ways. The digesters, 2.5 million gallons, they're both about maybe a half full. It's a 21-day process from the minute it hits our floor, goes through our systems to our digesters, and then creating gas that is actually going into the Dominion pipeline. We also, so 2 outcomes of it is the renewable natural gas, and then we're also collecting all the food waste at the end, the slurry at the end that the digesters make. We dry it and heat it through our process, our heating process, and then it drops into a large pit that is like a compost dirt. So eventually that will be something that you would be able to buy and then use at home or in any kind of like crops or something. Right now we're giving it to a local farmer who's doing testing on it. A lot of my friends though have reached out and wanted to like come and take like a 5-gallon bucket or just put it on their gardens at home. My friend sent me a picture, I should have included it in this, that his garden from last year to last summer, it was like 5 times larger. So it is really good stuff if you can bear the smell. It is a little stinky, but so our renewable natural gas that's in the pipeline, we are selling it, and then our compost that hopefully one day we'll be able to once we can work out all the contamination. So this is our dewatering press with for the compost that comes out of the end. We call it a biosolid. So it's really rich, dark, almost like manure looking. Still a little wet, but not as wet as it once was in the digester. So we're trying to increase our feedstock. Feedstock is all the food waste that's coming out to us. So my job is to procure all of that feedstock. We've actually expanded out of Utah. A lot of Idaho companies are sending us product, as far as California, Montana, and some down into Arizona that we're receiving. So a lot of people are getting on board with trying to lower their carbon footprint, be more community sustainable, and trying to divert their food waste from even just their lunch employee cafeterias or something like that. We are partnering with the landfill, so they will refer business to us and send, if there was a food manufacturing truck that was in an accident, it will come to us. If a reefer truck had problems with their refrigeration, it will come to us. So the landfill is getting on board as well. They would rather not see it in their landfill. Food waste is a harder process for them to work with out there, and it causes more labor. We have all the right machines to do all that. We have a depack machine, so a tote of, let's say, Coke product will come to us, and we literally just tip it, load it into the thing. 30 seconds later, all the liquid is being drained down into a hopper in the bottom, and then the kick out is all the recycles that we'll bale and then recycle with a local company. I mean, it takes 30 seconds to do probably over 1,000 cans of Coke. Obviously, we're looking for high sugar, high carbs that makes the best gas. We're not really looking for a Diet Coke product, but we will take it to do the sustainability thing and also recycle all of that. So as you're thinking and eating and throwing your food waste away, look around on campus, see if there are garbage cans that are noted that it is for food waste, and it's sending out to us. We appreciate the partnership with the U and with the hospitals. And that is all I have for you today.
All right, so, oh, you're gonna,
Yes, and then.
okay.
All good. All right, hi, I'm back. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much for giving us some context. I want to share a little bit about what's happening here on campus, and then we'll get the speakers all up here and we'll have some Q&A time. So circular economy, we've heard about this. I'm not going to reiterate. I just want to bring back this lovely forest metaphor that we've already seen. It's my favorite, right? What's the dream is to have a self-contained system where everything is sort of feeding back into itself. And there's lots of ways that we can do this. We've heard about some of those. And I think we have a lot to learn from the natural ecosystems around us and the ways that things work. And we can really take those ideas on board and move forward with them. These are the questions that I like to think about. Again, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is an excellent resource. This is a question that I basically got from them to think about circular economy. Eliminate waste and pollution, circulate materials, regenerate ecosystems. These are our sort of principles. This is the re-strategies that we heard about, a whole list of them. So what's going on campus? I'm going to talk about a couple of things. What goes around comes around. Some of you may have heard about this. This is a program that my office runs that is focused on reducing waste to landfill out of our move-outs from the dorms, right? We've got about 5,000 students who live on campus. That'll be growing up to 12,000 in the next few years. And we all have a lot of stuff, and we have a lot of stuff that is kind of unique to college campuses, right? That twin extra long sheet you probably won't use anywhere else. And so we see that we get a ton of stuff that will go to landfill. Many universities run this program. We've been running this since 2011, I want to say, quite some time. We have run this. We collect donations in May. Last year, we got somewhere around 5,000 pounds of stuff. This past May was more like 8,500. So we're collecting a good quantity of things. And then we held on to them over the summer. And then in August, we held this big pop-up thrift shop where we invited students to just come to the ballroom and take what they want, right? Keep it out of landfill, reduce some of that cost of living on campus, and reuse, right? A lot of this stuff is really high quality. It's easy to reuse. It's fun to go thrifting, and it's a really fun experience there. This is a very self-motivated shout out. We have a clothing swap that we're hosting next Thursday as part of Stress Busters Week. Any students listening online or here in the audience, we encourage you to come, bring some clothes, take some clothes. It'll be a lot of fun. Another program that we work on from the Sustainability Office, this is the recycling portion, is at the tailgate lot at football games. So we work with the student government on campus, and we walk around in these bright green shirts, and we talk to tailgaters, and we collect their aluminum, plastic, and glass, which are some of the most recyclable materials that we see, and we put that through our campus recycling system and get fair market value for those items that might have otherwise gone to landfill. Surplus and Salvage is a cool program here on campus. Campus departments that buy furniture, buy electronics with sort of university money are required. This is a policy. They have to kind of give stuff when it's the end of its life, so to speak. They give it to surplus and salvage, and actually that ends up becoming available for departments to take, but then the public. So if you see that row of computer monitors, right, you're thinking you need an external monitor, don't go buy new. KSL is a great resource, but you don't even need to go off campus, right? You can get these things for really low amounts of money. You can get office furniture. It's all available here for you. Another one is the Basic Needs Collective, just in the Union across the way in the basement, and they have an ongoing pop-up thrift shop. It's relatively small, but it's well stocked. It's really beautiful. That's another cool resource in terms of reuse and thrifting. The final one that I have here with pictures is the Career Success Closet. That's in the Garf building through the Eccles School of Business. You've got a job interview and you're like, oh shoot, I don't own a blazer. I've never done this before. Great. You can set up an appointment with them and basically borrow clothes from their closet. They've got lots of different sizes. They've got shoes. They've got jackets, ties, dresses, formal wear that, then you don't have to invest in something before you've even got your first paycheck, right? The final things I want to note before I get the speakers back up here is we do have composting on campus in a couple of different ways. Our landscaping crew composts all of the sort of mulch and leaf cuttings as they're going around and making the campus beautiful for us. And that's very cool. And then our dining services, which is run by Chartwells, does back of house composting, and they partner with Wasatch Resource Recovery. And so, all the food scraps that the chefs in the kitchen are working through do go to Wasatch Resource Recovery, and we recover that with that natural biogas, all the things we just learned about. So with that, I'm gonna invite our speakers. Let's come up here. We've got a couple of handheld mics. And I think one of them will go to Max because he's already got one, okay? And I've got a question that I'll start us off with, and then we'll open it up to you all.
All right, I'll let everybody stay seated. If you have your first question, go ahead and raise your hand. You'll go after our initial question from Kara, and Max will run the mic to you.
Awesome. Is this on? Yes.
Will be.
Okay, there we go. Awesome. Yeah, so my first question for you all is can we hear a little bit about what's the role of each of the industries, organizations that you work for in building a circular economy? We all represent, right, higher ed, municipal, public, private, and private. What's going on? How are we all involved with this?
All right, could go down the line. Yeah, I think that the role of city government is twofold, and in my role, that's how I would describe it. One is setting policy. We're somewhat limited in what we can do in the state of Utah. Being a non-home rule state, the state legislature holds a lot of power. Park City was the first to implement a plastic bag ban. The obvious reason to ban plastic bags is because we got to get rid of single-use plastics, right? But that's against the law to do something like that. We had to make the case that the economic impact of bogging down recycling machines because people throw them in the machinery, that was the case that we had to make, but we were able to get that passed. But yeah, setting up policies to help facilitate circular economy is definitely one thing. Right now we're really focusing on basic recycling, but also looking at food waste ordinance and a design for zero waste events ordinance. So those are two things that we're working on right now. The speed of government is painfully slow. So the other part of my job is a little bit more fast-paced, and that is implementing programs and partnerships. So working with organizations like Bold Reuse or the recycling center called Recycle Utah up in Park City to implement programs with businesses, schools to help collect food waste and close those loops.
I will piggyback. Is this on? Yeah. I'll piggyback on that. That's some of the exact same stuff that we are trying to do with policies, partnering with companies, partnering with with Recycle Utah, schools, obviously here at the U, a lot of hospitals, Intermountain have given us some grant money to help that go even farther. So just trying to do our part, and I mean, as we see the air out there today, to kind of clean things up and do our part, either on a residential side, a school side, an employee side, whatever we can do to get more awareness out there.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the role of manufacturing in implementing circular economy, I mean, the manufacturing industry in most cases is inherently unsustainable. And so you could argue that there's not a lot of incentive a lot of the time for the manufacturing industry to change. The reality is, though, there are tremendous business opportunities in adopting circular principles. I gave the example of our gas power business, finding ways to take something that we were once paying for and now making money from. And so I think what it requires of the manufacturing industry is a shift in mindset from this ownership model in which we sell things that are used maybe once or owned by a person toward, again, a rethink of the value that we're providing to people, and finding opportunities to pilot more service-based approaches to manufacturing, where you actually aren't, you don't buy a TV because you want to have this big, thing in your living room. You buy a TV to watch TV, right? So it requires us to rethink the way we consider how we add value to people's lives. Again, I think the financial opportunity is a big driver for the manufacturing industry. Policy certainly is a tremendous driver for us, and we should all be, I think the very simple solution is everyone has a role to play in this, and that's not meant to deflect the responsibility from the manufacturing sector. It's just meant to recognize that these are systems, and these systems are incredibly interconnected. And so manufacturing certainly has a huge role to play. I think there's tremendous opportunity. And it's on us as people in business who are trying to be, trying to provide as much value to human beings as we can to maximize the value that we're giving people.
All right, who has a question?
Hi. Okay. I just had a question about, because I know we talked a lot about food waste and other like grease waste. I have a question about makeup waste. I know makeup is like something that like just gets used and then kind of thrown out, or like if stores get returns of makeup, they usually just throw them out, or if makeup is expired, they do things called souping where they just destroy it, which is terrible and is bad for the environment. Has there been any progress made on recycling efforts for makeup?
As far as the makeup goes, I haven't come across anything. What I've seen is a transition to more natural products rather than chemicals. The packaging, however, I don't know how long it's been, but MAC has been recycling, they'll take back their compact things for a really long time. I don't know what happens to them afterwards, like how they're recycled or anything. I'm a bit dubious because they're really kind of crazy plastics and a lot of different types of materials that are in there. But I think to like my colleague's point here, there's such business opportunity, and the branding opportunity around that is huge. So I think that, L'Oreal has been a leader in this for a long time, and they're taking it very seriously.
Wasatch Resource will take some makeup products and or some of the ingredients that goes into it. So we do work with some of the LMMs that are local here. We'll take some of their products before it actually becomes the cosmetic. So some of the ingredients are going into it that our digesters would be able to process. Obviously, we don't want to take anything that would upset the microbes in the digesters. That would be disastrous. But we are working with them. We do know that it is a problem. There are some things we can take, some things we can't. But I do know a lot of the companies are kind of trying to think forward and how they can make their packaging more recyclable or offering some kind of like return back thing. But I think we are kind of a long way from that.
I just remembered something. This is a little bit like maybe a little bit one step removed from cosmetics per se, but toiletries. That's an industry where refillables are really starting to take off. I have helped revamp the Green Business Program up in Park City, and we've got a pretty cool structure to it. It's pretty hardcore, if I do say so myself. But one thing that we've heard from a lot of property managers and then hotel and lodging facilities is what to do with those little like single-use toiletries. So there's a refillery or refill shop up in Park City called Fulfilled, and we've partnered with them. The Green Business has partnered with them to work with hotel and lodging to really look at the refill model instead of disposables, so people don't have to bring them back. It's just the system takes care of it. Behavior change is really, really hard. So I think focusing on redesigning systems is where I'm spending my time, at least. But the behavior change is really interesting, and I feel like there's more of a hunger for these types of things, that people are more and more annoyed of like, what do I do with this? I don't want to just throw it away. Like, it's a really like fancy product that doesn't feel like it should be going into the trash. So I think there's a lot of room for innovation, but a lot's happening.
I just have a quick thing to add, which is essentially that yes, behavior change is really hard, but we are seeing at scale consumer pressure making changes in this space and in other spaces. And I think when I'm thinking about any kind of change, whether it's circular economy or looking at changes for climate change and our energy grid or whatever, it has to be both and. It's the systems change, it's also the pressure from individuals, and we all have a part to play. And I think that's a really great space where you can say, this is something I care about. How do I do it? The other thing I'll add is that there's some really cool research happening, both at the U and at other institutions, to try to look into how do we remove some of the chemicals from this. And these companies are trying, because they're recognizing that it's not good for our waterways to have the pollution, and it's not good to have to, it does cost something, those externalities of the pollution and of the waste. So thanks for the question.
Who else has a question?
So you guys discussed like waste with regarding food and manufacturing. So would you guys, what percentage does the waste come from consumers versus maybe like the industries and corporate side of things? Like, is the majority of waste that you guys are getting or that's being created from companies that are producing things, or from consumers just being wasteful and etc.?
Specifically for Wasatch Resource, we are seeing consumers or manufacturers. The majority of our food waste. So as I said, we have 4 different ways that we take waste. Our liquid and our package. So coming from food manufacturers, they're after waste, or like dairy farmers or dairy products. We have 2 pretty large dairy companies here in Salt Lake or in the Utah area. The amount that we get from them, we can't even take all the waste that they have. They have so much. The consumer, the residential, is fairly new and a lot smaller, and it's not being offered as wide. However, something that you all can do is like talk to your city representatives that you would like to have food waste bins available, either at your schools here at the U or at the community college or at your library, or something that you want them available. Because part of that is we want to provide that across the valley, but we can't put it on private property. We can't put it at companies if they're not wanting it or wanting to pay for the pickup on it. So talk to your local people and let them know that's something of interest to you. The more that it's asked about, I think it becomes a bigger deal. But no, the manufacturer company, they have quite a bit of waste. It's great that we're available to them and in the need that we're seeing a lot of the local states reaching out to us and willing to pay the hauling cost. And that is something that we're trying to keep so it's economical for them, that we realize that they're transporting it far and the hauling cost is expensive. So we want it to be a cheaper option. So we try and keep our prices underneath of what the landfill would pay or charge them. So it's more of a draw to bring it to us. So it's, if I invite all of you to come out for a tour, if you have interest, the amount of brewery waste, soda waste, just beverages alone, it's pretty remarkable.
Just briefly add, I can't speak to the percentages for manufacturing waste relative to consumer waste, but I would just echo what Kara said, that these are complex systems, right? And there are, you kind of have to take this both and mentality. Ultimately, manufacturers are producing their products for us as consumers. So, there's a responsibility as a consumer to signal to those manufacturers that you don't want whatever it is that you don't want, whatever it is that you take issue with. At the same time, it is far easier from a systems change, behavioral change perspective to change a single manufacturing site than it is to try to enact change across an entire city. So the concentration of that waste that's being generated provides an opportunity for a lot more impact.
Do we have any other questions? No, you're good.
Hi. So I'm a little bit curious about sort of the engineering side of some of this, specifically with the Wasatch resources. You guys were talking about the anaerobic digesters. I happen to be taking a class this semester that's teaching us how to make those. But I'm curious, like, how do you, and maybe this is a bit too technical, but how do you guys ensure that you have a quality product at the end of that? And maybe this could be applied broadly to the other aspects as well, but you were talking about how your gas that you guys produce, it varies depending on what you guys receive. So how do you ensure that you're maintaining a quality product for the public?
That's a really good question. We can't really. We obviously will take whatever we can get as far as food product, and we are fairly new. So we broke ground in 2014, opened our doors with our first load in 2019, and had gas to the grid in 2020. So we still are trying to figure those things out, like what makes really good gas, what is it that makes the best gas. So when we see our graphs go up and down, what came in that week or what came in that month to make it do that. We still are trying to figure that out. It is an ongoing kind of experiment. We have found, though, that it's the high sugar stuff, the high sugar, high carbs that make the best gas. But when you're mixing it with all the other products that are coming in, all of the dairy product, all of the sludge that comes from dairy or the meat slurry, it is a fine mixture, and it is kind of fine tuning that and making sure we're getting enough of a little bit of everything. Like I said, it's about a 21-day process, so we're constantly mixing that 21-day process. We do know that if we add too much fats, oil, and greases in at the wrong time or the right time, we can have a big influx where we're not making quite as much gas or too much gas. So I hope that I could maybe dial that in time. I don't have an exact science on it quite yet.
I think it's an excellent question. If I could extend your question more broadly beyond the anaerobic digester example, when you start to introduce secondary materials into a production process, remember these manufacturing processes are streamlined, and we've optimized these production processes to take a very specific ingredient with a very specific specification. The tolerance of those things needs to be as tight as possible to eliminate waste and to try to, again, streamline those things. As soon as you start to introduce secondary materials, or you start to open up the range on that specification that you're willing to accept, it does introduce a tremendous amount of variability into your process. and variability is one form of waste. There are some really, really exciting opportunities. So I work for GE Digital, that's my day job. And there are some really exciting opportunities to apply advanced analytics and machine learning models to correlate the different characteristics of the inputs or the different production events that are happening on the plant floor to the output. And then you can begin to detect patterns that you otherwise wouldn't be able to recognize. So really exciting opportunities there to take big data and leverage it to get a better sense for where are the control knobs, where are the levers that I can pull to try to, again, balance effectiveness in producing a product that we all want with efficiency in my production process. So.
I think we could probably do one more quick one.
Okay, I have a question. So what I'm hearing is that the public sector is more or less responsible for reusing, recycling, and sharing in the form of libraries, partnerships, public-private partnerships, and such. Am I being unfair, or is that how the circular economy is going right now?
I would say that it's more holistic than just the public sector. I think, again, the private sector absolutely has a role to play. Many of the companies that, many manufacturers are themselves private. So, I think when we consider how to change these global systems, it requires partnership, both public and private, in order to redesign these complex systems. So my point of view, again, from a manufacturing point of view, is it's not just a public sector commitment, that it actually is more holistic than that.
I would agree with that. I think I feel like my role, one thing that I didn't mention, policy, kind of pilot projects, but also public education. I think that that's a big role for government. And at the end of the day, we're in the state of Utah, where like in the private sector or public sector, we are restricted on what we can do, but it answers to business. So what I feel like is moving the needle as quickly as possible is working with members of the Green Business Program, helping them implement and then showcasing their wins, and then government will come on board.
Yeah, and it varies by geography too. Here in the U.S., we are a low regulation landscape. In the EU, regulation has a much larger role, and so we have to acknowledge that nuance. That there's not going to be kind of one dominant driver for enacting a global circular system when these different landscapes have different jurisdictions that have different preferences and different mechanisms to enact change.
Right, so I think we're just about out of time, but let's give one more round of applause to our awesome presenters. And then, just so everyone knows, pizza did just arrive, so you guys are welcome to grab some on your way out. And thank you so much for coming today.